Hey guys, it's Spence and welcome to another Tech Live event here for BBL students. I am Spencer Foreman and I will be your evil genius today to help you out with a topic that may be plaguing you. Plus, today, if you'd like, you can ask BBL students. Whoop. I am Spencer Foreman. There you go. You can ask into the chat room over here in the live event page any questions you have about anything related to tech. This could be with your current website, your Facebook page, could be with your marketing and how to do emails, anything that's even tangentially related to tech. Feel free to ask. I'm going to do about a 15 to 20-minute live presentation today. The topic is 5 steps to posting perfect online images. Most of you guys are doing it wrong. I bet you will find out today. And by the end of the short session, you will become an expert. Now, if you are watching live, we are obviously coming to you from the WPLaunchClub.com, which is our sort of one-stop solution for anybody who's a BBL student who just wants to get going quickly. So if you want to have a look over there, check it out, because one of the things we're offering today is a free concierge setup to somebody if you're interested in joining the club during the live event. If not, don't worry about it. The value is here, and we're going to give you some great takeaways either way. Luke Stacy's helping me out today from England in the chat room. So if you have any questions that just come to mind, ask him in the chat. He will then post them for me. And after the presentation, I'm going to go ahead and answer them to the best of my ability. I think you'll be very pleased. So if you're ready, let's jump into the actual presentation, because I want to show you some things that might surprise you. So today we're going to talk about something that we found over here inside of the Facebook group for BBL students, and that is 5 steps to posting perfect online images. Most of you, in one way or another, have probably done something wrong of what I'm going to show you now, and I want to make sure that you never make those mistakes again, because if you want to have an efficient online business, you need to do things like a pro. You have to act like a pro all the time, and that starts with your own website and then goes out, of course, into social media and even in your LinkedIn page. So this is going to apply no matter where you upload images. Let's start out with the basic premise. Who am I? I'm Spence. If you haven't met me before, I'm going to be your evil genius, your kind of crazy laboratory professor here. And you can find us with any questions subsequent to today's live event over at help@WPLaunchClub.com. And this is our special tech area inside of BBL for all of you who are students. And we want to make sure that even if you're watching this from the outside, you understand this is one of the great benefits that are offered over at BBL. So look forward to seeing you there. If you have further follow-ups, let's start out with today, our online image concept. You're probably doing it wrong, and the reasons are going to be very simple. That you make assumptions about what the reason may be for your online images. And I'm not talking about the actual reasons why people want to view them, but the reasons why you're putting them up in a certain way and in a certain place. So let's start out with the sort of basic premise. Website speed is the most critical thing of all. So if you are otherwise thinking, well, I'm going to put the biggest and the best and the most awesome resolution image ever onto my website, you've already made a critical mistake. Websites are limited in resolution by default. As I'll show you in a second, 72 dots per inch is all that most standard browser windows will display. Maybe if somebody has a special Retina laptop or a 5K display, they can actually technically see more, but 99% of all websites only show 72 dots for every inch of screen. That means if you're taking one of those digital camera images right off of your iPhone or right off of your digital camera or right off even your video, what's going to happen is you're probably at 300 dots per inch. That's literally more than 300% more stuff than you need to be giving somebody to get the same visibility. And all of that costs the person time. You see, it's like delivering water through a garden hose. The greater the resolution and the size and the dimensions and the quality and the lack of compression, the more dots of information have to be passed down that garden hose to the person's browser. And that means that your simple image that could have been delivered, boom, like that, might be a sort of hurry up and wait kind of a situation, which is a real drag, right? Like filling up a swimming pool with a little garden hose is going to take forever. You want to actually do something that's going to reduce the total size of your images, no matter what, to the very maximum that somebody could see anyway. Let's talk about how that works out, the details of that. There are 5 steps to perfecting your online images. Number one is the format you choose to use. There's JPEG, PNG, and GIF, or GIF if you like, if you're a peanut butter fan. JPEG is what's known as a lossy compression scheme. That means that it gives up some of the details in order to get the smallest file size. PNG is a semi-lossy format, but it has an advantage of not only being higher quality, it also has the capability to have transparency. And then GIF is an interesting format. It's an older format, but it kind of combines the best of the both worlds. If you have the need for a lower file size, but you also want transparency, GIF can handle it. But it looks a little chunky monkey because, again, lower resolution and transparency sort of looks like we're back to 1993 or something. GIF is today most often seen when you're seeing those funny animations because that's one of the legacies that allows for you to do. You can actually combine 6, 7, 8, 10 pictures into a little flip book kind of a display. 99% of the time, unless you need a transparent background, you should default to using JPEG format. Next is the dimensions. Now, most of you are making a huge mistake, as we'll talk about in a second, because you're making the images far too big. There's almost no circumstance where you'll ever need an image that is wider than 1280 pixels wide. I'll talk about that in a second. Your height might actually vary, but for most of you, actually limiting it to 720 pixels is gonna be fine. Next, resolution. As I just mentioned, 72 dots per inch is probably all that you will ever need, unless you happen to be catering to a whole bunch of people on Retina display MacBook Pros or something, which I know is not happening. Transparency, number 4. The two formats that are most common that allow for this are PNG and GIF. So if you happen to have something, for example, like a logo is a really good excuse to use a PNG file because when you make it a transparent background, you can likely use the same logo on any number of different color backgrounds. Similarly, with a GIF, you might find yourself with a situation where you want to do something that's maybe a little lower resolution than a PNG, but still working over another color background. And then finally, compression. That's your final step. We're going to talk about that. You must and should and always can reduce the space inside of any image. You'd be surprised at how expensive that empty space can be, as I'll show you in a second with an actual real-world example. So let's start with number 1, format. You want to always pick the proper format for your goal. In this case, unlike the real world, smaller is better. So you want to deliver the smallest thing possible because when you are having multiple images delivered to a web browser, you want to deliver as little as possible so that the people can spend as little time as possible to get your page to load. And that's going to help you on a whole number of different levels, not the least of which is the user experience. But in line with user experience, Google has made it very clear that they will penalize you if your websites do not load fast. Plus, you look kind of silly on a professional level if you're one of those amateurs who puts up a 3 megabyte image of yourself onto your LinkedIn page or onto your website or put it up on Facebook. Even if they allow it to happen, which many times they won't, just the sheer magnitude of that image size compared to the actual dimensions of what somebody could see in the web browser will sort of give away that you don't know what you're doing if you don't choose the right format. So, rule of thumb takeaway, choose JPEG almost all the time unless you need a transparency. Then ask yourself, is this transparency of an image that should be high resolution? In which case, go with PNG. If it doesn't need to be high resolution, go with a GIF. Next, dimensions. So most of you are using a web browser that has a maximum content area of around 1180 to maybe 1280 pixels. That's very rare. I would say it's usually under 1200 pixels wide. Since that is the case, there's really no good reason why you have to have some image that's 4000 pixels wide, because all that's going to happen is that the person is going to need to download a gigantic file that's 4 times larger than they need, and their browser is just going to shrink it to fit the size of the content area anyway. Now, there's certain exceptions, of course. For example, if you are doing a background image, you might say to yourself, well, what if the person has a 27-inch iMac and they want to look at my browser across the whole screen? Technically, you're right. It could possibly use a bigger image. But remember, even if they do that, the dots per square inch of their display is only at 72. And think of it like painting with one of those dotted or circular paintbrushes. You know, there used to be an artistic form called pointillism, where you just, I don't know if that was Renoir, maybe Luke can help me out, Matisse, maybe. It was just a lot of dots. And you can see this in newspapers. The old way that newspapers used to make images was to just make an higher concentration or lower concentration of black and white dots. Same idea here, is that even if somebody has a gigantic monitor, since their display is only 72 dots per inch, you putting in an oversized image is not going to do anything to really increase the sharpness over just using the right size image and allowing it to scale up properly. So dimension should not exceed the size. And this is exponential. So if you took an image that should be, let's say, 1280, and you put in one that was 4 times larger, remember, it's got to multiply the width of the pixels to the height of the pixels. So in many cases, your size can go up 4 squared, not just double or triple. Okay. Let's talk about resolution. So I've been belaboring the 72 dots per inch. If you took your screen and you literally, with a Q-tip or paintbrush, just made a series of dots, okay, each direction, north and south, east and west, you would have 72 dots per inch. Luke, help me out. Thank you. It's Seurat is the pointillist artist. If you were to just go ahead and make a series of dots, almost everybody that's using a computer monitor today or screen has a maximum of 72 dots each direction in a square inch. And that means that it's sort of pointless for you to go ahead and natively use your digital camera's output, which tends to be something at least 300 dots per inch. Remember, you're always going to multiply the number of dots east and west by the number of dots north and south. So if you had 100 by 100, that's 1,000 dots. If you doubled that and you put in 200 by 200, that's not 2,000 dots. That's 4,000 dots. That's like 4,000 ping pong balls have to go down that garden hose to fill up the person's browser square inch versus only 1,000 ping pong balls. That's 4 times as much. You don't want to do that. Transparency. We kind of talked about this. If you don't need transparency, almost in all cases, go with the JPEG. If you do need transparency, then decide whether or not you need the overhead of the high resolution that you will get from a PNG. I would say beyond the transparency, you could consider using PNG whenever you have a detailed image of something up close. For example, could be a detailed map. It could be somebody's profile picture. It could be something that reveals, I don't know, the dust on top of a vintage book or something. But if you don't need that kind of minute detail, you're just wasting the person's time when they have to download this. And then multiply that times the multiple images that might actually be on your site. And finally, compression. Now, you would think that the space between pixels doesn't cost anything, but it actually does, because you see, the screens need to fill the space between colors with something anyway. And so if you have that dead space, there are ways using special algorithms to remove that deadness and also to remove duplicate patterns. So for example, if you have a big area that's just a bunch of whiteness or blue or green, these compression algorithms can be used by a special free service to actually reduce the amount of data that the image contains. And that allows the data to basically show the same image, but with less there. Let me show you how this works out. So for example, if I went to a Tiny PNG, this is the service that we use that's free. And there's also a WordPress plugin that will work inside of your WP Launch Club that allows you to do this automatically when you upload an image. Now, let's just, for example, take a free image from Pexels.com. And this is a free image service I've mentioned in other places. Let's take this nice keyboard. All right. We're going to just save this image as, and we'll save it as, let's put it on the desktop here. We'll just call it, well, we'll leave it what it is, Pexels whatever. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at what happens when we upload this to TinyPNG. Just drag it in place. It's originally 65 kilobits. This was actually pretty optimized because it only took out 18%. Let's go with an even bigger image. Let's go with something that maybe has a lot of waste. What's nice about these images here is that they're probably already optimized pretty well. Sometimes I've seen as much as a 50 or a 60% reduction in size. Let's see what the next one. This one is a little better. This one is 180 pixels. So we put up 180 pixels and not too bad. It's actually about the same, 15%. Either way, the point should be still clear. You're saving 15% even just from that one simple situation. I'm going to do a different one because I want to make sure this actually is really locked in. This last step is practically the most important thing that you can do. Let's do a picture of a dog. I'll just grab something. Doesn't make a difference. Here's a cute picture. Caesar's Way. Let's grab this image. We're not going to use it for any commercial purpose. And this actually might even be optimized because it's on a website. So let me actually take something that's probably not optimized. I want to find a really huge, here we go. Let's find something like this one. This is probably not optimized. Let's see what we get. Okay, this one's 525. So this should probably make a nice example. We upload 525. TinyPNG compresses, gets rid of the dead space. And even if this image was previously optimized, right, it's going to squeeze the extra juice out of it so that you're just delivering a freeze-dried, totally compressed, ready-to-consume image without any extra waste. And let's see if this doesn't work the first time. We'll just refresh the page. This is a bigger image. That's why it's taking a couple seconds longer. Let's try it again from scratch. Okay, dramatic. This is what I wish I had started with, but you know, I do these things live. So it started at 525K, which isn't really bad, but that's half of a megabyte. And just by at the last minute going to TinyPNG, I was able to just reduce 55% of the size out of that. Now, if you multiply that times 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 images on a page, just think of how dramatic the savings could be. A half a megabyte here and a half a megabyte there. Pretty soon, I might have 2, 3, 4 megabytes of just wasted space that came out of the website. And if somebody's downloading from their phone or even from a normal non-high-speed internet connection, 2, 3, 4 megabytes could be the difference between a 2 or 3 second page load and infinity, 10 or 12 seconds. So a huge difference. Let's go over these steps and see what we've got. So basically, there are 5 steps to a perfect image upload every time. The first is make sure you've got the smallest format. Next is make sure you've got the smallest possible dimension, no bigger than the size of the place where you're going to post it. So if it's in a sidebar and you know that it's only a couple hundred pixels wide, just reduce the size of the image. By the way, I didn't mention this, but if you want a free image sizing tool, you can go to pixlr.com, Pixlr.com. This is free, and all you need to do is choose one of their web apps. In this case, I would just use either the Chrome extension or the simple web application, the editor. In this case, if you don't have Flash, just use the Chrome extension. I'm on a Mac, that's why it won't work. But I can use the Chrome extension, and this allows me to edit the image directly. If you go right here to editor, let's see. And they've also got another tool here that lets you add effects if you wanted to, etc. But just to size the image, that's fine. What I'll do is I'll typically use on my actual Mac or in my PC, I'll just use the built-in image sizer, and I open the image and just change the dimensions. Next is, do I need more than 72 dots per inch? Well, clearly the answer is no, unless you happen to have a very unique audience. For example, if everybody is watching you on a high-resolution 5K monitor or Retina and so forth. Next is, do I need a transparent background? We talked about that. So if you have something that might be like a logo, for example, a WP Launch Club, this logo is actually a transparent PNG, because that way, if we wanted to, for some reason, change this white image area to another color, and you guys won't need to do this, but I'll just give you an example. If I change that color, I could still see everything that I need to say. So let's just, do this a different way. This is a little tool that we use over here, the web design tool. You guys don't need to worry about it too much. If I change the color to blue, right, or red, or green, you see with the transparency, the image shows up just fine. I might want to change the color of the font to something else, but let's say even if I do a lighter color, that's what transparency allows you the flexibility to do, and that's a really nice thing to have. Next is, have I compressed the final image with TinyPNG? So I've made it the right size, I've made it the proper format, I have the right DPI resolution, I've made it transparent or not. Then I run on over and upload it to TinyPNG and remove 55% or more, and then download the final image so that I've got the optimized image that then, and only then, I will upload to my website, or I'll upload to Facebook, LinkedIn, so forth. Now, again, many of those social media spaces and places will actually restrict you from uploading something that's too large. But honestly, you don't want to even start with that, because if you make the mistake and they allow the bigger one to go up, it's just going to end up, again, making a loss of time for people who are otherwise trying to enjoy your content. Okay. Now, we are open to any questions and anything you might ask of us. Just go ahead and ask us over at wplaunchclub.com or directly at help@wplaunchclub.com. For those guys of you who are here either watching this live or who are watching it before we finish up, if you've not otherwise joined us and you want to just have your website done, one of the things that we've really had good success with through our BSL 1 and 2 and now in the official Launch Club is to give you for $59 a done for you bookkeeper website. And so from that standpoint, you can do it yourself and get going with virtually no time, no risk. Everything is specifically set up for you. But for many of you, you've decided to have us help you further and get you completely done. So today, after this event is over, we're going to draw from the names of anybody who's purchased since the time of this live event being announced till the end of this live event. And one lucky person is going to get a free concierge setup for their site worth $497. And I just want you guys to know that regardless of whether you do concierge, we love to help. So ask questions in the Facebook group, ask questions directly at help@WP Launch Club. It doesn't make a difference. My purpose in being here is to make it easy for you to have all the technology expertise you want. And that is actually one of the great benefits of this whole Launch Club idea, is that your goal should be, how can I most quickly get to being a bookkeeper, or whatever your particular goals are from a business standpoint. We want to make it that you've now got a friend and an expert in all the technology right at your fingertips that otherwise would have cost you thousands and thousands of dollars and having to go out and find relationships with somebody you trust. We want you to understand that by using all the same things that we've curated out specially for your needs, you don't have to think that hard. You can focus entirely instead on what you're trying to accomplish with your business goals. And that's the most important thing of all. To avoid you being stuck on the technology, we want to make it easy. So reach us at wplaunchclub.com or help@wplaunchclub.com. Now, if you guys have any questions, it's a very quiet group today, feel free to ask. If you don't, that's okay. You'll be able to follow up, and this will be a recorded event that you can watch again. We'll post the link to it once it's ready, as well as announce who the winner is. And in terms of follow-up, if any of these things strike a chord, or once you start to try them, you have questions, just go ahead and ask your questions then. So Luke is telling me we have a very polite and quiet crowd, which I appreciate, but at the same time, it's the middle of the day. Many of you are busy and you watch the replay instead. So I want to say thanks for joining me. Let me sign off here with a live goodbye. And I look forward to seeing you every Tuesday. We're going to actually post a poll to see if there's a better time of day, because again, you never know. But with the group that we've got right now in BBL, maybe most of you are busy doing other things at 1 p.m. Central Time. So we want to make sure that it's a good time where most of you can actually attend live and take advantage of the live question and answer session. So we'll be posting a poll along with the winner of today, and hopefully you guys will let us know if we did a good job today. For myself and Luke, I want to say thanks. We'll see you on the next event.